Welcome to the Book Binge. I'm your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and today is my first non-update collaboration between my main channel and the second channel. If you were subscribed only to the second channel, you haven't seen the Book Binge because I only publish the Book Binge on my main channel, which is all book-related stuff, whereas the second channel is non-book stuff, music, video games, film, all that kind of thing. But today's video kind of discusses some content related to both film and movies. Sorry, film and movies is the same thing. Both books and cinema, because this will be covering some film adaptations of books that I would like to watch. So these are books that I have already read in this list, because to me there's 4 different categories of things that I could have included in here, and there's a long list of them. You know, books that I have read since I started doing BookTube on the main channel, 2022, so basically since late 2021. Books that I'm going to be reading soon, like this year. There's a couple things that I could have mentioned here. There's books that I have read a long time ago and will reread someday. And then there's books that I have not yet actually read that have film adaptations. In fact, there's a lot of these that I would optimally either like to watch or read the book before I watch the movie, or, mentioning them here in a list about books that I already love and so want to watch the film version. Kind of depends. And also there are a couple of TV shows and miniseries included in here, but for the most part, it is movies. So, this video will focus particularly on those first couple categories that I gave. The books that I'm reading soon in a couple of cases, and the books that I have read since late 2021 in most other cases. There's a lot to get through in this video, however. I'm definitely going to have to make more parts of this, like a part 2 later in the future, once I've read more, also once I've watched some more of these, because there's some other entries that I could include here, but just frankly did not make the top 10. And as is, I'm really cheating with some of these entries in the list in the first place. So without further ado, let's talk about my top 10. Notably, I should also include as a tagline here, I will be making an effort to watch most of these that I mention at some point this year if I can. So that is the first thing. Number 1, we're just going to get this out the way right off the bat, is actually a couple rewatches. They're also in the thumbnail of the video. That's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings up here, and that is because, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings books are great. They're very obvious inclusion on the list. To not include them on the list would be very strange. I have watched these before. I watched, I want to say I watched the 3rd Hobbit movie in the theaters, but the previous 2 I had seen otherwise, and then I watched the 3 Lord of the Rings back in 6th grade. In fact, I watched probably all 6 of these movies somewhere in that 6th grade era of time, approximately. And I remember enjoying all of them, but I haven't watched any of them in a long time. I know that I need to rewatch them. I've been fully intending and planning to rewatch them at some point soon, and I intend to do that this year, actually. This is one of my top priorities. I'm going to be rereading The Hobbit in just a few months from now. I'm going to be rereading Lord of the Rings in October, so I plan to also watch the films in each case, and so make content about them. So that is basically my plan. Although I should add that, because this video is coming out in February, I'm really sad that I missed a bunch of, there's a theater a couple hours away from me that was doing screenings for the 3 Lord of the Rings, on back-to-back days. And I would have really liked to be able to attend that, but it just would be very difficult to justify, both because of the unpredictability of weather where I live, being able to actually get to that place, and being able to do it 3 back-to-back days would be even worse. So it would be an entire vacation, taking 3 days to just be down there to do it, and it would have been a little bit too much. So that's how things go. Number 2 is going to be my first cheating pick, and that is because I want to talk about various Cormac McCarthy adaptations, and that is obviously because there are multiple of them, and multiple of them that I'm curious to see. One of those being the Sunset Limited, which, I don't really need to watch because the book is basically just a screenplay in and of itself, and the way I experienced this book was with the audiobook, which is itself basically just the two characters going through all the dialogue. I can't imagine that the film would be anything much different than that, but given that it's a couple different actors that do it and having the actual film of it rather than just the audio experience, maybe it could be something to expand my horizons on that front. By all means, it seems like it would be good. The Road I include as a technicality because I don't particularly love The Road, but I would be interested in watching the movie just because it's Viggo Mortensen and because I would be interested to see if it can be a little bit more affecting to me personally than the book ended up actually being either time that I read it, because I did try reading it twice. So I would be interested in watching that. But the reason that Cormac McCarthy's at number 2 on this list is because of No Country for Old Men, which I actually really, really like. This book is great and does some really great things. And I hear nothing but great things about the adaptation. I mean, it was obviously one of the standout films of the year it came out. And by all means, it seems like one that I should definitely be watching. I mean, Anton Chigurh in the book is one of my favorite villains or antagonists in any book that I've ever read. He's very, very well done in here, and it seems like the acting in the film does a great job. I mean, there's a lot of like memes and stuff based off of him specifically from the movie. Like, it just seems like it would be really good, and I want to watch it for that reason. Kind of on a similar note is American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. This is basically as high priority for me to watch as No Country for Old Men is. These are both movies that are like, why haven't I watched these yet since I've read the books, a few years ago in some of these cases. Like, why have I not actually seen the movies yet? In American Psycho's case in particular, it seems to be that it's like surprisingly faithful to the book. And that's pretty surprising. Like, you know basically the entire movie just because of all the memes from the movie. And based off of some of the memes after I had read the book or while I was reading the book, I was just like, wait a minute, these exact little things are in the movie actually. And I only know that based on like the GIFs and stuff. And so that's intriguing. I would like to see the movie and see if that's something, a way to experience that story in a more efficient manner, we'll say, because while I love the book, I will never reread that thing because, quite frankly, it is pretty boring, it is pretty dry, it is pretty dull. It does a very good job of putting you in Patrick Bateman's head, but there's a large amount of the actual reading process that's pretty tedious, so I don't want to read that again. But I would be interested in having just that crazy experience in the film version, so I want to watch that. Next up is going to be the recent-ish 2024 adaptation, I guess, of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. You know, there's a couple other adaptations that I would be interested in watching, like potentially the 1934 film, maybe. The 2002 film seems to be held relatively highly. It's in regards to the sea of adaptations of the book. So, 2024 version isn't the only one that I have my eye on, but it is the one that I want to watch the most. Apparently there's also like an anime of this back from like 2004 or something. So like maybe that would be something interesting to watch. I don't know how faithful that is, but I do definitely want to watch the most recent film version, the 2024 one anyway, because it seems to be a very highly regarded adaptation. I think it is the most highly rated one, at least on Letterboxd. It is the most highly rated adaptation of Count of Monte Cristo, and that story is incredible, and re-experiencing it in just 3 hours instead of reading this entire thing would definitely be something that I'd be interested in doing. Definitely one I want to circle around to. Next up, speaking of another classic and another book that I loved, that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Guillermo del Toro did a adaptation of this in 2025, and I didn't even realize that existed until it was out. I had no clue that thing was coming out until people had been watching it. It never came anywhere near me. It was not something that I would have had the opportunity to watch at the time, unfortunately, but it seems like an enjoyable time. There's a pretty wide range of reactions on Letterboxd, for example, including amongst my friends and the other people that I follow on the platform, where there are people rated as low as 1 or 2 stars and other people rated as high as 4 or 5 stars. I understand that it's obviously much more faithful to the book than like the ancient universal version is, but you know, still kind of does its own thing. I would be interested to see what that is. And Oscar Isaac playing, what is it, Dr. Frankenstein, actually playing Dr. Frankenstein. Sure, that actually seems like a pretty good casting choice to me, and Guillermo del Toro is pretty well revered anyway, so I'd be interested in watching that one for sure someday. These next couple picks are going to be some cheating options. That's because they incorporate a whole bunch of different movies. The first one here at number 6 is going to be, like, in general, just some Stephen King adaptations, and I know that these can be pretty hit or miss. The two in particular that I want to watch the most, I think, at this point are Cronenberg's The Dead Zone, and then The Shining. Who did this? What's the name? I know who did it. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and that is embarrassing. I know he did, 2001: A Space Odyssey alongside Arthur C. Clarke, but I can't remember his name. Okay, I have to look this up. If I don't look this up, people are going to clown on me. They're going to clown on me anyway. What is his name? The Shining. Kubrick. I didn't even need to finish looking it up. That's his name, Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick did The Shining, and by all means, I do want to check out these two adaptations, but there are some others, like the original 1976 Carrie, the 1979 Salem's Lot could be fun. I have not actually read Cujo yet, but I would be willing to watch the movie of that this year, since I'm actually, at the time that this video releases, I will have probably finished Cujo almost certainly. I also plan this year to read, what is it called? Different Seasons, I think, the novella collection of King's that includes like The Shawshank Redemption and Apt Pupil and Stand By Me, or rather The Body, which got adapted into the movie Stand By Me. So like there's various King adaptations, including some pretty highly regarded ones or relatively highly regarded ones that I would like to watch, even just based off of the only King books that I've read so far, which isn't that many, but I think The Shining and The Dead Zone are probably the movies that I'm most interested in for the moment. So that's included there. Number 7 is also, again, cheating for a similar reason, because it's kind of in general Michael Crichton adaptations. These ones more so out of morbid curiosity. Now, like, I know that King adaptations can be very hit or miss. Like, some of them are very good and some of them are very not, whereas Michael Crichton ones seem to be mostly like kind of mediocre to bad for the most part, with like Jurassic Park having been basically the only one that is like really highly regarded as a whole. But I am interested in seeing some Crichton adaptations, because why not? Like, I just feel like it would be entertaining to see how bad you could possibly butcher some of these stories, because some of them seem simple enough to make into good movies, but seems like maybe not the case. But so, my one triple combination that I have is of the Andromeda Strain, the Terminal Man, and the Great Train Robbery. All three of those have adaptations, including the Great Train Robbery being under the title The First Great Train Robbery, being directed by Crichton himself, so that might be interesting to check out. Congo and Sphere and Eaters of the Dead also have adaptations. Apparently Spheres is pretty cheesy and mediocre, if not bad, and Congo apparently is a very bad movie. And Eaters of the Dead is adapted into 13th Warrior, which I don't actually know quite the reputation of that movie specifically, but, there's plenty of Crichton adaptations specifically of these early books in his career that I am interested in watching solely for the morbid curiosity. Jurassic Park, I've seen before. I've read both of these two books before, but I need to reread them at some point here soon. The Lost World I actually haven't seen, so that's one that is of note that I should watch at some point, but just in general, I do want to watch some Michael Crichton film adaptations, but we'll see which ones I get to this year, if any. Like, if there's any that I get to this year, like the Andromeda Strain might be the one that I put at the top of the priority list, or maybe First Great Train Robbery, just because that one was actually directed by Crichton. I'm not entirely sure, but we're going to move on to number 8 of this list and talk about briefly War and Peace, which has a 2016 miniseries adaptation and a 1967 miniseries adaptation. Both of these versions seem to be pretty highly regarded in various different ways. The 1967 miniseries is a good bit longer than the 2016 one is, so it's probably a little bit more in-depth. So the modern one is probably better for like the modern polish and stuff, and the original one's probably a little bit better as far as like actual faithfulness and adaptation go, but both of them do seem to be pretty popular for different reasons. I can't imagine that making a film version of this would necessarily be that easy. It's definitely a noble effort, and these two miniseries are the versions that I would be interested in checking out. But because they're miniseries, they might be a little bit harder to justify, but I do still want to watch them. Next up is going to be moving from a couple miniseries into like an actual TV show. That is Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This one is not like, it's not one that I'm super eager to watch per se, but it is one that I'm very curious to watch. It seems thoroughly fine. It seems good. So I'm interested in watching it for the reasons that people think it's fine, as opposed to the couple movies that came out a decade and a half ago, which are very bad adaptations in basically all regards, even though I liked some of the casting and them. Particularly Percy and Grover, I liked those casting decisions a lot. And I have some issues with the show, including amongst some of its casting decisions that are a little bit distracting and off-putting for character reasons. I'm sure nobody's unfamiliar with the discourse around some of that. But it is one that, like, I should probably give a shot and actually watch, you know. Season 2, I'm pretty sure, is just wrapped up for Sea of Monsters, and if they continue to go on and actually adapt the whole series, that would be great. I would be really curious to see what, you know, going further with the series would get from an adaptation, because really the biggest problem with those first couple movies is that, like, they're not the worst movies. It's just that they take so many creative liberties in a story side of things that by the end of the Sea of Monsters, you just straight up can't adapt the rest of the series, because so many things are like different enough that's like you can't get this back on track. And I think that that's probably the biggest reason why it didn't continue. So as long as the show is being basically faithful and is doing an okay job of that, I'm interested in watching them. Like I said, I'm not super eager to do it, and that would require a lot more time, and would actually have to pay for Disney Plus to do that, and I'm not super eager to pay for Disney Plus at the moment, but we'll see. Like I said, it is one that I'm interested in, but we'll see. May or may not be this year. But next up, we're going to talk about Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I believe I talk about this in tomorrow's video, more on that a little bit later. Very briefly, Jane Austen in general. The 1995 miniseries is one of my mom's like favorite things. She's not much of a movie or TV person at all, but she loves the Pride and Prejudice 1995 miniseries. And there's also the 2005 Keira Knightley film that seems to be pretty highly regarded as well. So these are a couple adaptations of Pride and Prejudice I want to watch, because the book is actually quite good. I struggled with a good amount of it. I'm actually kind of surprised, because this book is not very long. It's a book that I need to reread because of how much I didn't click with it until I finally did, and then once I did, it was like incredible. But if I were to give this a reread, it's one that I want to reread after I'd actually watched some of the adaptations. Apparently the 95 is like very good from a character side of things, so I'm interested in that. As a little honorable mention, kind of tied along with that, the 2005 adaptation of Pride and Prejudice is done by the same guy who did the 2012 Anna Karenina adaptation, which seems to be decently highly regarded, so I would be interested in watching that, actually, because I've also read Anna Karenina, so that's like as a little bonus included in here. So, you know, those are a couple extra adaptations to watch. But next up, there are going to be a couple honorable mentions here as well. One of those is actually kind of stacked beneath some things, so I might have to move some stuff to do that, including the shirts for my next couple of videos. I'm just going to hold up the last or the first one of these because it's easier to do it this way, because the rest of the stack is on the floor over here. An honorable mention is Monster, the manga, so obviously that would be the anime adaptation. I'm not the biggest on anime in my experience, but I haven't actually experienced that much of it. And obviously what little bits I have seen isn't necessarily indicative of that as a whole. So like, I'm not 100% against trying some more of it. And given that I really enjoyed Monster and it has a pretty highly regarded adaptation anime, then I'm kind of interested in watching the anime, because I also kind of want to reread the manga in the first place, so that's something that I might be interested in giving a shot at some point, but I didn't feel like that was worth including in the list proper. And then some other honorable mentions, some very quick, like, rapid-fire things, and a couple items in here we'll actually be talking about in tomorrow's video on the second channel, which is about 2026 films that I'm excited to watch. These are honorable mentions because these are films coming out in 2026 that I may or may not actually go and see. A couple of these are higher priority than others, but you never know. So things like Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, I would like to watch. There's a Margot Robbie Wuthering Heights adaptation coming out here pretty soon, actually, at the time of this video's release. Surprisingly soon, that I might be interested in actually going to see. It doesn't seem like it'll be super faithful, but like, you know, I don't need a Wuthering Heights adaptation specifically to be super faithful. If it was, it would probably be miserable, so who knows. But that's something on my radar. Project Hail Mary, of course, is, I typed that wrong. My notes say Project Hail Mail. That is not right. Project Hail Mary, starring Ryan Gosling here in a couple months. I'm really interested in seeing that. I think that movie has potential to be a lot better than the book. I liked the book quite a bit, but I was kind of bothered by some character and particularly narration decisions with Ryland Grace, and I think that Ryan Gosling would actually make a great Ryland Grace, and especially make him different from Matt Damon's Mark Watney, for example, in ways that would actually be a good thing. And then, of course, I don't even know where I put it. It's somewhere. Dune Part 3, based off of Dune Messiah, Denis V's Dune trilogy going on here. I do plan to go watch that as well, even though I haven't actually read that book yet, so that's kind of like a little asterisk there. I haven't read that book yet, but I am interested in going to see that, and probably I'll read the book before the movie even comes out, but that's one to note. And then also a movie that came out last year, a few months ago, that I missed. I don't think it actually came to any of my theater, to my local or semi-local theater, so I didn't get to see it. That was The Running Man, based off of Stephen King's Richard Bachman book, The Running Man. I was actually going to go see that in theaters last year, but then I guess it never came anywhere nearby, so I didn't get the chance to, strangely enough. That's one that I want to circle back around to and watch this year, probably, because I'm going to be reading the book this year. So those are a couple honorable mentions. And one final thing, you know, I know this video is continuing on longer than I probably want it to be, or than you probably want it to be. I do have a couple dishonorable mentions, actually. These are film adaptations that I'm not interested in watching for one reason or another. There's just two of these to go through. You know, I kind of looked at my shelves just like, what books have I read that have adaptations? And most of them are like, you know, maybe I'll watch that, or I don't have any particular desire one way or the other. But many of them are like, yeah, I'd be interested. These are ones I'm not interested in. One of those is I Am Number 4, and that's just because I've read this book enough times and I love it so much that I'm not interested in having the movie ruin that for me. I had the opportunity to watch this in 8th grade when we actually read this for English class, to watch the movie afterwards, because that was kind of an incentive, was we'll be able to watch the movie in class one of those days. And that didn't happen, or rather it did happen, but I wasn't given permission from my parents to actually watch it. But in the long run, I didn't think I really wanted to watch it in the first place anyway, and right now I don't want to watch it now. I'm not interested in having that ruined because I love that book too much. And kind of a similar thing, Les Mis. I'm not interested in watching any version of this, period. I don't think I'm even interested in watching an actual musical performance of this, and that is because this book is tied for my favorite book of all time. So, yeah, I just don't feel like having any of my experience with this book affected by the musical or by any of the film versions, least of all being the Hugh Jackman and Anne Hathaway one. Reason being, I've heard some pretty mixed things about the actual direction that takes from like a filmmaking kind of directorial perspective, that I'm like, I'm not sure how much I would enjoy that anyway, but the real issue is that I just don't want this story ruined, and also there's one particular song from that version of Les Mis that I cannot stand because I had to listen to it 50 trillion times growing up because my dad really liked it, and I hate that song. So I'm like, no thank you, I just don't need to watch this, so I'm not interested. I'm never going to watch an adaptation of Les Mis as long as I live, because I just do not want, like I said, I don't want my experience of that affected in any way, shape, or form at all. So yeah, that's quite the mix of things. If you're watching this based on my second channel, feel free to come over to the main channel if you're interested in book related stuff, because that's what I do on the main channel. If you're watching this on the second channel, then consider popping over to the second channel for tomorrow's video, which is about 2026 movies that I'm interested in checking out. So, you know, this little collab is pretty fun. I might be doing a handful more collabs between the two channels for film related stuff, specifically because of adaptations like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, you know, movies or books that I'm reading this year, whose movie versions that I plan to also watch this year. I'm probably going to do second channel content about it, but because it will also have to do with the books, there's a good chance that I'll be doing some collabs here again, now and again. So if you're on either channel, then, you know, feel free to hop on over to the other one, stick around. I would greatly appreciate it. But whether you do or not, I understand, and I appreciate you for watching this either way. For now, I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC. I hope to see you guys in tomorrow's video on the second channel, but I will hope to see you in the next video over here either way.